10 Steps Further is a podcast designed to help you get 10 steps further along your spiritual journey. If you've been on your journey for 30 years or 30 minutes, if you believe in God, or even if you're not sure He exists, all we're trying to do is help you get 10 steps further. I'm Jonathan, and this is Jack, and we're just taking a walk. Why don't you join us? Welcome back to 10 Steps Further. We're excited today. We are going to become Christian ninjas.
Yes.
We have Gino, Mingo with us again, and we're going to talk about a book that you wrote. How long ago did you start writing that book?
Wow, I actually started writing it in 2014.
Wow.
The writing of it was pretty easy, and then I tried to get it off the ground, and it was supposed to go to an actual larger publishing thing through a friend of mine, Brian Buffini. He was doing this stuff, and then they go, "Oh, we have our quota of books this year," and then it just kind of fell through the cracks.
That's how it works?
Yeah,
It's like,
and
nope.
It was sitting on the shelf, and then I was on the phone with a friend, and they kind of said some things, and it just sparked it again, and this time the doors opened up and the stars aligned. So,
awesome.
I was talking to a guy, Tim Kimmel's written a bunch of books on parenting. I was hearing him speak, whatever. And he described, you tell me if this is true or not, Gino. He described writing a book like giving birth to a barbed wire baby.
Wow.
And he's done it multiple times.
Multiple times.
Would you ever go back to that?
Oh, well, and you know what? I think the writing of it for me didn't feel as much like that until you start going through the publishing process.
Yeah, sure.
And they come back and go, "Hey, let's do this, let's do that." That's where you can feel the labor of it.
Like they're editing it?
Yeah,
and
they're
they
editing certain things.
Yeah.
And or they're going, "Hey, we don't want to repeat that same kind of phrase or that thing," which was really good.
Yeah.
But then, you're like, it's so true what you just said, because I was like a pregnant woman going, "I'm just ready for this thing to be launched."
Right, yeah.
And they're going, "Okay, let's do this, let's do
Right.
that." And so that process, it was both fun and laborious at times. And
Right.
you go,
Right.
"Okay, but I enjoyed it." It was
That's
actually, at
great.
the end, I enjoyed it.
And I just told you this a second ago. I broke my rule for you. Because I've pastored 22 years, had people handing me their books. Will you read my book? And I've been given such awful books before. And I started to read it, and I go, "Oh my gosh." Then what do? When this guy comes up to sees me at church and says, "Hey, how do you like my book?" Or they hand it to me, I forget to read it, or I put it on my shelf because I'm busy. And, a book, it's a commitment, right? So you don't read it. I had a guy leave the church because I didn't read his book. He was mad at me.
That's great.
So I did break my rule, and I'm really glad I did, because I didn't know this, but I'm quoted in this book. All right?
Ooh,
I'm going to read it to
what?
you. Anytime you are shaping, forming, cultivating, and imparting the nature of something into someone, cutting corners is not an option. You cannot and will not produce something that you are not. And that's a fact, Jack.
That's right. See? I put Jack in the book.
I feel like I was being called out, though.
Yeah.
I feel a little bit like I'm being called out.
Never. You know what it was? That was like 11-year-old Gino in elementary school, and we're talking smack to each other. "That's a fact, Jack." So I had to throw it in there.
Nice.
I have heard that a couple times in my life. Okay, so here's how we're going to hopefully over the course of this podcast, you'll learn a few things about discipleship and what that means in your life. But the direction that we're going to go with this particular podcast is I read it, and I highlighted things that I knew Jonathan would like. I was fairly certain he wouldn't read it.
That's funny. No, I gave it to Jonathan just to kind of be a coaster.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so he just put it on as a coaster. And he'd be like, "Oh, yeah, that's Gino's book." And he'd put it down.
Yeah, man,
While he's watching Steph Curry, he just put his drink on it while he's watching Steph Curry sink threes. There you go.
I'm trying to get Gino to do an audio version of this book.
Yes.
He is. We're going to do an audio version.
I'm going to do it.
In this studio.
That is how I consume books.
Right here.
It's
That's
like I
great.
can't sit down.
That's great. But
to
anyway, I
consume
read some things that I thought Jonathan would like. We'll start here, okay?
All right.
My hindsight highlight was playing against Del Curry,
Wow.
father of one of the best NBA players in the world, Steph Curry of the Golden State Warriors.
Yes.
I've up close and personal knowledge of how Steph Curry became the best shooter in the world. He got it from his daddy. Okay, oh wait, here, I'll just keep reading. I like this part. His dad instilled in him discipline and a strong work ethic. One of my favorite monikers given to Steph by the NBA analyst is, can you say it?
Steffortless.
Oh,
Oh man, I love that one. That's
didn't know it's
probably
been
my
around
favorite
since
thing.
2014.
Okay, so first off, let's just talk about Del Curry. When did you play basketball with Del Curry?
Well, I was on the Denver AAU Junior Olympics team at 14.
Wow.
And we went to Arkansas to play in the tournament, of all places. And we step out on the court, and I remember there's some names that later on you realize are going, they're like Antoine Jobert went to Michigan. These were guys that I was playing against in this tournament. So we step out on the court against this West Virginia team, I think it was at the time or whatever. And so, I do what you're taught to do. Normally you fall back to the ball's tipped off. We get it. We go down. We shoot. We miss. They get the ball. No, we made it. We go back and usually stop around, the free throw line, extend it to pick up for defense. So I drop back and I get there, and then this kid comes across midcourt, gets about a foot in front of the timeline, and pulls this jumper and sinks nothing but net. Pow! And I said, "Oh no." I'm like, if he could, no, I'm like, oh no. So I could tell you what size his underwear was after that. And then through the game, and see, Del Curry, that didn't come till college.
Let me explain. He meant that he was guarding him
So closely. Yes, so closely.
If you're not a basketball
Yes, you're
fan,
not a basketball.
that sounded very weird.
That did. I apologize. I was guarding him so well, I could tell you what size his jersey was, his underwear was, because I was not going to let someone shoot on me like that all day long. And his name is Wardell Curry. So that's when I met him, as Wardell. So fast forward, I'm a senior in college, and I'm laying on the couch watching the NCAA tournament. And Virginia Tech is playing, and this guy's coming down, and he's shooting these threes. And the announcer's going, Del Curry on the shot, Del Curry on the shot. And so I'm just kind of like, oh, man. And finally, I'm like, this dude can shoot. And finally, they zoom in on his face. And I raise him, like, that's Wardell.
yeah. He's a medium.
I was like, and I just remember thinking to myself, I'd have dropped the war too when I got to college.
Yeah, that's great. Wardell.
That's awesome.
That's so good. Okay, so what does Steph, we were just talking about Steph Curry because before every podcast we talk about Steph Curry.
Right.
Yes, we are kinfolk.
Jonathan, his favorite player, my favorite player.
My favorite
you love
player.
everybody's favorite. What does Steph Curry have to do with discipleship?
Well, it was just something that I recognized in him, watching his training videos, watching him shoot, having experienced playing against his father, knowing what his father did on their basketball court, training him how to shoot well and saying, you're not going to be tall, Steph, so you need to do this. This book for me was written, one, out of my own experiences over the past almost 30 years of discipleship, and that for me, being an athlete and just understanding human beings, everything to me really comes back to your nature. And what I recognize is that Steph had something instilled in his nature that can't help but come out when he gets on that basketball court. And I just firmly believe that as human beings, the way God created us, that's everything. I believe everything becomes second nature to us, whether it was sin or we practice righteousness, like John says in the Bible, that it becomes second nature for us. And so that's what we look at Steph out there, and it is Steffortless. It goes, how do you do that? Well, I'm like, okay, let's go watch him in the gym when no one's around, and you'll see why he can do that. All the practice, having that coach there, that trainer like a Todd Durkin or someone going, do that again. Let's do this drill. Let's go here. Why do you think that happened? You need to strengthen that. Your left hand's weaker than your right hand. So that's really where that came about. It's just that analogy, that sports analogy.
So let's talk about what does that mean if you're going to be a disciple or a disciple maker or raise up people. Mm-hmm. What are the kinds of things that you will be doing? What are the kinds of drills that you'll be doing? And jump shots you'll be taking, and
Well, as a disciple, obviously, there's that building your relationship with Jesus, your personal relationship with Jesus. As I said one time, someone asked me, well, what did you do? I'm like, well, an hour of power, getting in that word every day, an hour a day keeps the devil away. I tell people, you know what I mean? And just building that relationship with Jesus, just practicing denying myself, as one of the chapters is about self-denial, just looking at Jesus's words when he talked about discipleship. He goes, if you're going to come after me, you must first deny yourself and take up your cross. And just what does that practically mean? Am I allowed when he's my Lord to make my opinion more important than his? Or even yours at times, these things, really looking at my own life and going, okay, how can I mirror what he's saying more and more? And so for me, but in making disciples, just really, like Michelle and I, years ago, we put together kind of a list. It's almost like a discipleship checklist of like, how are you moving people down the field or around the bases, for a baseball analogy? And, are they getting in their word? Are they getting plugged in to the church? Are they establishing these anchors and relationships? Are they involved? Are they discipling themselves? Are they reading? Maybe men are struggling with lust. I'll give men a list of scriptures that just deal with lust. And I'm like, listen, pick one, meditate on it throughout the week or the day. You find yourself looking when you shouldn't, or that second look when you shouldn't be. Things of that nature, just that, like what a coach did to me on the football field, is what I'll do with people, is just really coaching them and correcting them, or just helping them get these disciplines in their life. What does worship mean? You know what I'm saying? How do you go about carrying yourself at your job, with your friends? Now people are married, with your kids, with your wife. Just coaching in that sense.
yeah. So this is something we kind of talk about a lot. In fact, I think we debate this a lot. Because in some ways, what he's saying is it's all good, right? Like the more time I spend, but then it becomes a checklist, to-do list. So I don't know if you have any reactions to some of this, Jonathan.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a wild thing because it's like it feels double-sided, because it's like the things are good. Like you're talking about doing good things. Like nobody's going to argue that. Like, hey, let's be a good dad. Let's be a good husband. Let's be a good coworker or worker. Let's show up on time. Let's commit to going to church. Let's commit to giving generously. All of those things feel very, and they are good. And nobody's gonna argue that. I feel like nobody's gonna argue that. But yet at the same time, it also is this whole other side where Jesus over and over would just kind of point out the gap. Like the guy who came into the temple and says, oh, thank you, Lord, that I'm not like other men.
Right.
I give, I fast, yep. I show up, I'm doing good. And then the other guy who's like, I'm not doing any of that. I can't even go into the temple. And Jesus says, that's the guy that God's listening to.
I love that, because the first guy was focused on doing. The second guy to me was really focused on his existence and his being. And that's really why I say to people, this is not a how to do book, but a how to become book. I remember what Jack's talking about, the checklist thing. I remember where you can fall into that trap of feeling like, oh gosh, is he going to come down with the cosmic fly swatter and get me because I didn't read the word today, or I didn't, or I didn't pray long enough today. You know what I mean? You get into that. And then I remember, just as the Holy Spirit ministered to me about this being a relationship. Now we have, I tell people all the time, I go, you can't become something without doing something. But to me, it's a paradigm shift. Are you focusing on the doing, and that's going to get you what you want, or are you focusing on becoming something? Because what did he say? Become. We become his disciples. You know what I mean? And that's really through that relationship with him. We become like something the more we're around it, the more we interact with it. Now, I look at Steph Curry, and if he didn't do all the things that he's done, we would not allow him as the person that he is. So there has to be that balance, right?
Right.
There just has to be that balance. I find, though, if I'm discipling you and I'm really pushing towards trying to inculcate these attributes and these things into your nature, you're going to be better off than if no one's discipling you and you don't know how to walk with Jesus at all.
Right, right. Okay, so do you want the second portion of the book written specifically for Jonathan?
Oh, hallelujah.
okay. Here we
Okay,
go.
all right, we go. We really should be Gino's voice reading this.
It will be. Soon
Yeah.
enough,
It will
soon
be.
enough.
Soon.
Years ago, I heard the story of a young, talented basketball player I enjoyed watching play in college, who later made it to the NBA. He was from Chicago and played collegiate basketball at the state of Illinois. And, of course, his favorite player was
Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan,
Of course.
who played for the Chicago Bulls. He, like many others at that time, wanted to be like Mike. So when he made it to the NBA, he embarked on a journey to find out all of Michael Jordan's routines involving basketball. He discovered that Michael Jordan wore his University of North Carolina blue practice shorts from his college days under his NBA uniform while playing in the games. Did you know that?
I'd heard that.
Okay.
Yeah.
He also found out what pregame meals Jordan ate, what workout regimens he used to stay in shape, as well as other various Jordan-esque rituals. Then he calls him the Fotagé. Decided to wear his own alma mater shorts under his pro team's uniforms, eat the same pregame meals, and follow Michael's workout regimens. But what he didn't do was get down to the nitty-gritty of what Michael Jordan did to become arguably the greatest basketball player of any era. Okay, for one, there's no argument, right?
There's not, but you have to say that.
somebody-
There's not
Greg-
in my mind, but you have to
Greg
say
Campbell is listening to this podcast because that was to LeBron.
Right.
So
See, that's
I
why
just
I
wanted to
give it-
say
yeah.
that and call him out. All right?
so
And if I were discipling him, I would just simply correct him.
That's right. Okay, now I got to keep reading. Now, on the flip side, there's another basketball player who wanted to be like Mike or better than Mike, but refrained from copying Jordan's uniform or pregame meal rituals. He set out to glean all he could from Michael Jordan regarding the game of basketball, diligently applied to his skill set during his illustrious career. And to this day, can you fill in the blank? Do you know who it is?
Kobe?
Kobe Bean Bryant.
Yeah, there we go.
It says, and it has, you have the little quotes. This is cute.
Yeah.
R.I.P. Mamba.
Yeah, rest in peace, Mama.
Yeah. More than any other NBA player, draws the most comparisons to the great Michael Jeffrey Jordan, and rightly so. Instead of simply adopting techniques and looking or acting like Mike, Kobe took on the attitude of determination. His work ethic attached it to his already tenaciously competitive nature and became the best of his position since Mike.
Yeah, I love that you picked that because the thing that I always want to impress upon people when it comes about being a disciple of Jesus, it's not about Jack or Jonathan or Gino as pastors and me coaxing you to become one, me trying to just force you to get one. It is about no one forced me to become a football player. When I decided at age 7 that I wanted to be a football player and my dad bought me a helmet, that coach didn't have to coax me. Whatever, because I wanted to be a football player. I wanted to get to the NFL one day. So whatever he told me to do, I was willing to do. Even when I didn't want to run those 110s, when I didn't want to do that, I saw, but if I want to get there, this is what I need to do. What I loved about Kobe is he would call and wake Michael up at 3 a.m. to ask him a question about why'd you do this. You look out on the court, they're playing each other. They're both hands on their knees, leaning in, and Kobe's questioning about, okay, why'd you do that move right there? And during the game, Mike's going, because I had him on this side of my hip. And I'm going, he's a disciple. He's gleaning. He's wanting to become this. He wants to reach a certain level. And I believe when Jesus puts that out there, if you want to become that was real exclusive. In that culture, everybody had apprentices and disciples.
Right.
And, but he's going, listen, you can be Gamaliel's, you can be even my cousin John's, but if you want to be mine, here's what's required. Now you make the decision. Once you made a decision, Peter and them, once they made a decision, even when hard, difficult statements were brought to them, they still swallowed them and kept stepping with Jesus, although they didn't like him. Look, you look at me and go, man, eat my flesh and drink my blood. I don't like that. You know what I mean? But if I know it's going to get me to the NFL, or I'm going to be the best shooter ever, or I'm going to be the one that is compared to the greatest ever, like Kobe was, well, then I'm willing to pay that price.
Yeah.
And that's where it comes down to for me.
Yeah, no, what keeps going in my mind is like, what is the goal, right? What's the end game for the disciple?
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting to me is that, like, we have this American end game of like, well, it's like promotion and
success,
healthy family, and what's wild is Jesus's end game was the cross.
Yeah.
And 10 of the 12 guys that followed him's end game was the cross. Like, success was dead.
Yeah.
Like, not like dead violently like him dead.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is like, we get this, and I feel like I'm going the same direction you are, where we get this idea that, like, well, if I do it well, I'm going to get to here, and if I don't get to here, something's wrong. And it's like, no, you don't understand. You're going to get to here.
Right.
Like, you're going to get as low as you can possibly go. You're not going to go up. You're going to go down. And that's the, like, discipleship is this, like, when he says embrace the cross, like, we're like, oh, yeah, you know, and we love that. Like, this is figurative word. That was literal for Peter.
It was.
Like, that was literally, like,
and
it was
apparently
like,
upside down,
yeah,
right?
you're going also to be nailed to a cross.
Right.
And you know, and we're just like, oh, my cross to bear, you know, and it's like,
see,
no,
I'm glad you brought that up. My cross to bear. One, the end game to me is to be like Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he saved me. So the fire insurance card is taken care of. I'm going to be with him in heaven. I'm not worried about that. How I can glorify him down here now, that is a concern on my mind. And to me, that end game is this, one of my favorite scriptures, Luke 6:39. He says, you know, the blind can't lead the blind, for they lead them into a pit. He's talking about the Pharisees.
Right.
You know, he goes, one time he says, do what they do what they say, don't do what they do. But the very next verse, 6:40, he says, the disciple doesn't become greater than his master.
Mm-hmm.
And here's my favorite line, but once he's been fully trained,
Mm-hmm.
he becomes like him.
Mm-hmm.
So there I hear Jesus' words going, this, if you want to be like me, this is how you become like me.
Right.
You get trained like this. But that cross to bear thing, I told people there, because I'll hear people say, oh, well, you know, they lost their job. And they go, well, that's my cross to bear. Or I have cancer, that's my cross to bear. All right. And I don't want to offend anybody, but I go, I said, I don't really think that's how Jesus sees that. To me, when he says, look, deny yourself, take up your cross and follow me, I believe what he's saying, your cross to bear is to manifest my presence in this earth. His cross was to die for the sins of this world that we could be with him. I believe ours is to die to ourselves so that his presence can be manifested through our lives and other people's lives be changed.
Let me ask this. So where's this motivation come? I mean, I get it, right? Like, Kobe was great because Kobe worked really hard. I read books about Kobe. He wasn't a great guy, though. Like, so I just want you to know, like, I don't want to be Kobe Bryant.
He was greater later on than he was early on.
I guess so, right? Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
So.
Again, gosh, I got to apologize to somebody out there who doesn't like it. I just said that. But so how do people develop this kind of motivation? Like, I get it. Like, that's what it takes to be a disciple. You have to have that kind of motivation. You have to want to be in this relationship with God. John, what is it to you? Why do you have motivation in this relationship?
It's interesting. Yesterday I was having a conversation with my wife, and she is in charge of a bunch of people, and her job is to, you know, and I'm kind of relating this to discipleship, because basically her job is to get people to do stuff that most of the time they don't want to do. You know, she manages a Starbucks, and
she's
so
discipling people in the ways of Starbucks.
Yes, exactly. But I mean, so she's got this. You know, her job is people basically, they do it because they get paid, you know, enough to keep coming. If you stop paying them, they're not going to keep coming and making coffee, and they're not going to wake up at 4 a.m. to do it. And And so we had this conversation because then she comes home and then she's dealing with it at home too. It's like, okay, now it's the kids and and the house is a mess and all this and it's me and I'm,
So it's not just my wife. Okay.
Yeah. And so we're having this conversation and it just gave me this thought about, man, life is not a lot of fun when your goal is trying to get people to do stuff they don't want to do. Like that's a terrible way to live life.
Right.
Like, and it seems to be that good leaders, and I think it applies in ministry, it applies in my life. The people who have been the best leaders are not people telling me what I'm doing wrong so that I'll do it right. It's the people who inspire me to do it right. The people who set the example, who say, like, I want a marriage like that person has a marriage. I want my kids to be like that person's kids. I want to have that kind of relationship. I want to, for some, it's in athletics. Like I want to be that level of athlete. And so people like Jordan inspire people like Kobe. And people like, Jack inspires a congregation at Canyon Springs. And so I feel like that is like, I feel like we sometimes don't put enough emphasis on that piece that we know what's right. And so we just like, hey, you're doing it wrong. Here's how to do it right. Yeah. And over the long haul, that's not a very good coach.
It's not. Yeah. I agree. It's not a very good coach. Well, I look at Jesus. I think it's why he used the word if in the beginning. I believe he wants all of us to be his disciple.
Right.
Right. He uses the word if. Well, I look at how he dealt with the rich young ruler. He laid it out there for him, and he let the rich young ruler choose. He didn't all of a sudden run after him and go, hey, let's do a layaway plan. Give me 60 now and give me the 40 later. He let him choose. So it landed in his lap as to whether he wanted to follow him, whether he wants to be a disciple or not. And that's the way I always was with these kids on the college campuses. I'm like, look, you want to be a servant leader? You want to become a disciple? I go jump in my back pocket and let's run. It may not look like there's a lot of room back there, but it's a big back pocket. Jump in there and let's run. And you eventually see who wants it, who makes that choice, who doesn't. Right. I'm not going to chase after you to chase Jesus. Yeah. I didn't see him chasing after people. He died. He did the greatest thing he could for you. If that's not enough for you to realize you need to give your all to him, then I don't know what to tell you.
I think there was that moment in my life when I knew that God had taken me out of my old life and brought me in, forgiven me of my sins and dumped all that old stuff, and I got a new chance. Okay, so that was definitely huge motivation for me. Not everybody has that moment. Right. But there's also going to be this time, too, where there will be people that look back in their life and go, man, you're right, he was right. Had I made the decisions that he wanted me to make, my life would have been better off. Right. You'll get to that spot where you go, man, that would have been good.
Right.
But developing that motivation, getting to that point. I just reading about Kobe Bryant, man. Like Kobe Bryant and Michael and Steph, they got taking all these. They take thousands and thousands of shots. They're rare as far as motivation. Yeah. They're like all kinds of world class motivation. Right. And we're dealing with,
But I guess I feel like we undervalue inspiration. We undervalue, and part of it can be generational. Like I think your generation is more of a you just do it because you're supposed to. Like it's the right. Like we talk about that from time to time. Like
thank you for judging my entire generation.
But isn't that true though? Like I know because that was what was handed to me. Was this is how you do life. You go to the job, you get your work done, and even if it's a terrible job, you do it because that's the right thing to do, and you man up and you do it. Like that was that generation. And I'm like caught in the middle because this next generation is like follow your dreams, and it's all so it all transitioned with
do whatever you
Generation
feel.
X, which is mine. It's like the millennials are like all out there of like if it sucks, don't do it.
Right.
Yeah.
But I do feel like there's value in that in the sense of like when I think there's two sides of it. One is seeing somebody who you want to model, and Jesus. If we look close enough at Jesus, he will be that one.
Oh, absolutely.
But then on the other hand, it is also to desire to be the one that others will model. That there are plenty of parents out there who want their kids to be a certain thing, but they're not becoming that thing themselves. They're not going to be like, I'm going to lead that. I'm going to show you what it looks like to be this type of a.
It's funny like my kid went to Harvard, right? So like the minute he went to Harvard, God, there were people who wanted to hear what I had to say about parenting. Right. And he'll tell you, it wasn't my dad, man.
Yeah, right.
But
That's so true.
It's funny. You do, if you live in this space and you live in it the way that it's supposed to be lived, then you have the kinds of things like peace beyond circumstance. Then you have joy that goes beyond circumstance. Then you have a gratitude about yourself. You learn the power of generosity and how maybe if I care for other people, there's a whole side of me that comes alive that I enjoy my life so much more. If when you live into it, then you're more motivated by it. But you're right. If it's just, hey, do it because it's right, that stuff just isn't going to last. I think probably. Yeah. I think Steph from an early age saw the ball go through and heard the crowd, and he enjoyed that and wanted to hit more.
And he
Kobe
watched his dad.
Right. That's
He watched his dad. I love how Jesus says, "I don't do anything I don't see my Father doing."
Yeah.
And he watched his dad, and so not only did he watched, he gleaned, he got instructed and coached and corrected and all those things. But you're right, isn't it? But it's biblical.
I just want to throw this out there, man, because like those are the people that we value and we honor.
That's
right.
But
you know what? That they can shoot a basketball. Great. I'm glad.
Great.
I'm glad you dedicated your life to shooting a basketball, and I enjoy watching it. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but really, we're asking people to dedicate their lives to something that will literally make a difference in your life and leave legacy in somebody else's life.
Right.
And I don't know if you're paying attention, but this is the week. I don't know when this podcast will come out, but this is the week Paul Pierce came out with an Instagram video of him with 2 strippers. And he can shoot a basketball. But is this where he's wound up with his life? Right. And I know early Kobe had just a lot of issues with teammates and what have you. What Jesus says, man, I offer you life, full life, because I know Michael Jordan. We've seen it. We've all watched the special. He's still so competitive, and I don't know that he has a peace inside of his soul, even though he was unbelievably driven. Right. But the kinds of things that God promises you are these things that are beyond.
Well, see, I believe
being able to hoop.
We don't talk about that enough, about the blessing and the peace and what comes with being his disciple.
Right.
It's part of that blessing.
It's funny because growing up, we went to these little podunk churches, and then we got when I was 14, my mom started going to this.
Now you're at this podunk church.
Big church. Yeah. No, this is rock star church compared to what I grew up in. But we went to this big church, and I remember, like, it started off, the music was amazing. I was like, what? This is church, And so I got to go to that, and the pastor was an hour, man. He was long-winded. Like, I had my spot. And you don't know when you're 14 going to church that when you fall asleep in the chair that the pastor can see you, because there's like 1,000 people. But up there, I promise you, he saw me like nodding off every service. But there were certain things, like he taught, he preached, it was awesome. But he had one thing that really kind of started really striking me is like he would tell stories of like when I was in India last week, when I was in Russia last year. And he was just living this version of Christianity nobody else I knew was living. And that was, to me, that was a call to ministry, because I was like, I want to live that. Yeah. I don't want to live like, Accountant Bill over here, who's just like basically living his life not to do everything.
Right.
But I want to live like Ken, who's living his life to do as much, to make a difference, to go into pour into people and so that, I feel like that is often
so many
missing.
Offended accountants listening right
now. Hey, man.
Hey, but thank you. But thank you.
Yeah, but it was just, for me, it was an inspiration. It was, then I went to Bible college, and it was other guys who I'd listen to, and they'd have these radical stories of walking by faith. And I was like, I want to have those kind of stories.
Yeah.
And I feel like, if it's all fundamentals, of, here's what to do, and then even we're not even going to watch sports.
No.
Right.
If they're just going through these robotic motions.
Okay, so I have another that I want to read to you. Can I do it? Let's see.
Sure.
We got 10 minutes.
Yeah, we're good.
All right, another Jonathan moment. This is the podcast, so Jonathan doesn't have to read your book.
Glad I could be of help.
All right. Here we go. At the end of each of these chapters, he has these cool down devotional stretches, like things for you to do to actually practice this discipleship. And after this is in the nature of the disciple. It says, I'm an avid basketball lover. Could you tell? I've had the pleasure of playing with and against all-stars and Hall of Famers such as Gary Payton. We were hearing about him a little bit earlier.
Seattle
before.
Supersonics. That's the
right.
closest thing I have to a home team.
Terrell Brandon. I know this is one of Gino's best friends, AC Green.
Yeah.
Del Curry, Dave Jamison, Brent Barry, slam dunk champion,
Yeah.
and others. It's always fun to watch guys who thought of themselves as basketball players playing a pickup game against actual NBA players. When these guys walked off the court, you could tell by their disposition that their thinking had changed a bit. They were no longer thought of themselves as basketball players, but thought more like this: I just play basketball. Proverbs says, for as he thinks within himself, so he is. It's time to take the magnifying glass and place it over your heart. You'll only live out what is in your heart, not what's in your head. In a lot of ways, that's what we're kind of talking about right here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't do. It's hard for me to do stuff just because I think it's right.
Mm-hmm.
But when I see it and I witness it and I walk it, and then I feel that it's right. So I just came here right after a golf lesson.
Mm-hmm.
I play golf with my buddy Ken every couple of weeks, and I'm not that great. So they'll tell me, hey, why don't you just enjoy the scenery and enjoy the friendship? And go, yeah, that's great, but why am I carrying sticks around now? Right? Like, come on, I want to. I would enjoy this.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but when my instructor teaches me in a way that I get it,
Mm-hmm.
and then the ball flies the way it's supposed to fly, that's motivating,
Right.
Yes.
Success.
right? It
and
is.
you have the confidence that, man, I can maybe reproduce that again and maybe
right.
again.
And if I
maybe
see,
again.
that,
Yeah.
okay, I'm following this God because He likes me, He loves me, and then my marriage is going this way, or I have success with my kid, or, a lot of times for me, it's just I had somebody come to me and say, man, I feel a lot of shame in the Bible and what have you, and I get that, but I don't think Jesus just told everybody what to do. He walked from place to place, and a moment opened up, and then you could see, wow, I can step in here and make a difference. And that happens to me. Like, it's more and
Right.
more.
Mhm.
It's
Right.
not just, I speak on Sundays or I lead this group,
Right.
whatever. It's when God shows up, and then I live into that, and there's my motivation.
Mm-hmm.
But see, because of your relationship with Jesus, there is an ability and a confidence to connect and minister to people no matter where you're at or what you're doing. And that's what I want for people, is to have developed a relationship with Jesus that no matter where they are, they feel that they're a disciple, not just born again, not just in his family, but they've been developed. They've been taught and trained in a way that they can minister the love of Christ, not get a notch in their belt, because I got someone saved, but minister the love of Christ to them and actually affect change. I mean, it's biblical. Paul said, imitate me as I imitate Christ. I would tell those students on campus, you see me do something that is not like Christ, you flush it down the toilet, and then you come to me and call me on it. Why'd you do that? And give me the chance to repent to you if I was in my flesh or I was not mirroring Jesus for you in the flesh. That's, to me, that's what he was looking for.
Yeah.
Read the book.
That's what you got?
Yeah, that's what I got.
That's what you got.
Read the book.
All right, we only have a little bit of time. I want to make sure we get a good. This is what I want to have happen. I want to give you a good chance to plug the book, and just kind of tell people why.
Mm-hmm.
And then I want you, after you do that, I want you to tell us about the time when you almost got in a fight with Gary Payton.
All right. Well, I wrote this book again because I believe God wants his kingdom in our nature, because we only live out of that. Again, you cannot and will not be or produce something you are not, for it's just not in your nature. For me, I look at this book and I go, I've been a part of, at some level, 4 movements in the body of Christ. I've seen people call discipleship many different things. I've seen a lot of believers who are scared to minister to people. And it's because they don't feel that they have what it takes, or they really know what to say, or they really know how to do that. Isaiah 50 verse 4, he says, the Lord has given me the tongue of disciples. And it says this, that I may sustain the weary one with a word. As believers, being a disciple is not a gift like in the fivefold ministry or a healing gift. It is a call by Jesus, a commissioning for all of us that claim his name, to be able to sustain the weary one with the word until they can sustain themselves. And so that's my challenge for those who have claimed his name, who have received his blood, who are saved, that listen, you don't just get to be in his family. He's expecting you to go do what was done to you, to go minister and love on people. And I'm not saying beat them over the head with the Bible. I'm not saying you got to give them 20 scriptures, address and verse. I'm saying go be like Jesus and love on them like we read how he loved on people in this world. That's how lives are transformed and changed. It's not just having them jump through hoops, because I'm with you, Jonathan. I just don't want to sit there and have someone jump through hoops. Just do this, do this, do this. I never did that with people on the campus. I never sat down and go, let's just do a Bible study. I would go, Jonathan, let's go get some lunch and see a movie. But let me tell you something. In that couple hours, it was going to be just like Jesus walking with disciples. They get in the conversation. They go, well, what about that, Jesus? And he goes, well, look at the lilies of the valley.
Right.
And he starts to minister. It wasn't this, well, I just got to get you to do this and check that list. It was like, no, discipleship is relationship. We're going to get in a relationship here, and we're going to see where God takes us on this journey. But when you get done, you're not going to be afraid to love on someone else the way you were loved on, because you didn't think you had what it took.
So the book is Black Belt Discipleship. You can go on Amazon right now. Is it live? Can you get a real copy now?
Real copy.
You can show up at church and you can get a copy, and Gino will sign it for you. It's how much is it?
15.
It's 15 without the signature. It's worth 13 with it. And we're also sometime, hopefully in the next 6 months, we're gonna get the audio version and get Gino to do that.
Yes.
Rolling.
All right. Okay. So tell us about Gary Payton was an NBA player, All-Star. Is he in the Hall of Fame?
Yes, he is.
Gary's in the Hall of
Fame.
Fame. All right. That Gino played basketball with. How old were you when you were playing basketball, hooping with Gary?
Oh, I was 21.
Okay.
20,
all right.
21.
All right.
I could hoop. I mean, they wanted me to come out on the basketball team. I don't know if I love football or basketball better even to this day. And so I always played with the Oregon State Beavers, who were really good back then. And we're good this year, Elite Eight, right?
That's right.
And so they would only let select people play with them, because if you can't play, like that story in the book, they're worried about you getting hurt. Are you hurting them?
Yeah, definitely.
So we would go to Gill Coliseum, and I would play in the spring with the basketball team. And so Gary and I had actually become good friends. He was a rookie. He loved football. He loved watching me play. We connected. So he would give me tickets to the game and things like that. So we get out on the court this day, and Gary was known for talking smack. I mean,
he's legendary.
I could call him on the phone right now and go, hey, Gary, talk some smack to Jack for me real bit. He said you weren't no good. Ooh, he'd give you the business just right there, right? So we're out there now. I had quick hands, quick feet, many pounds ago. And so I picked the ball from him, and he started getting mad and yelling at me, whatever. And we came down the court again, and I picked the ball. I stole the ball and went down. He called a foul. Gary, it's not no foul. So we get into the whole thing. It's a foul. It's a foul. I said, it's not a foul, Gary. And so he starts talking smack. And I said, Gary, man, you need to cool out with that. And then Gary's like, man, what? And he said some choice words. I'll call my boys from Oakland and have them up here. And I said, Gary, I won't let you get to the phone. We had many encounters like that over the years playing basketball together.
So
but we're friends. We're good friends. I can call him right now. Whatever. What's up, buddy? But yeah, man. But it threw me, because I just not expect Gary to come at me like that. Then you realize it don't matter who you are. When he's on that court, it could be his mom. He gonna talk smack.
Great.
She'll smack him, but that's just
great.
Gary.
Well,
Love
that's
it.
great. Hey, great book. And get it online. come to church, meet Gino, get in the conversation. Hey, man, you show up to Caney Springs, Gino Mingo might actually disciple you.
Watch out now. Look out what you asked for.
All right. Thank you for listening, guys. Always check out our backlog. We got tons and tons of episodes at this point. And Gino's got, what, you got 3 others that we've done, or 2 others?
2 others?
Yeah, so check them out. We got more. We'll see you next Tuesday. Every Tuesday, new episode.
Awesome.
Peace.
Thanks for joining us for these last 10 steps. If you'd like to join us for
There's
another
so much
journey,
in here.
if you know
Like, if
someone
I would have
else
given you, hey,
who's on
give me
this
5
walk,
steps.
subscribe to our podcast at 10 Steps Further on iTunes, or simply search 10 Steps Further on your podcast app. And if you'd like to be part of the conversation with a question or a comment or a criticism or even a wisecrack, look us up on Facebook. We've created a Facebook group where you can be part of the conversation. We'll see you next time.